Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Corlandos Scott and I'm a surrogacy lawyer. And you're probably here because you're wondering, what are the surrogacy laws like in the US? Well, stick around because I'm going to tell you just that. In this video, we're going to cover the surrogacy laws here in the United States. We're going to talk about what's the current state of surrogacy law in the US. We're going to talk about how surrogacy is regulated and why that matters. And we're also going to talk about things that could make your surrogacy journey legal or illegal. Stay tuned. You may be wondering, well, how does this surrogacy thing work? And is it against the law? Is there a US federal law that governs surrogacy? The simple answer is no. There isn't. But the reassuring but complicated answer is every state makes up their own laws. One thing that is for sure is that surrogacy laws in the US are always evolving and always changing. So you really have to keep your finger to the pulse of surrogacy laws, so to speak, so you can make sure you're doing it the right way. I lump states into three separate categories when it comes to surrogacy law. There are states that outright ban surrogacy. They don't recognize surrogacy contracts, and if you have a baby through surrogacy there, I hope you get to take it home. Then there are states that are just silent about surrogacy. There's nothing in the state law about whether surrogacy is legal or illegal, and there's no real cases or case law that points to whether it's legal or illegal. In those states, you kind of just, again, go at your own risk and hope that it works out. The third category that I lump states into with regard to surrogacy law are states that actually address it. The states that actually address surrogacy and allow it are definitely the states you want to consider when you're thinking about going through a surrogacy journey. So if surrogacy is left up to the states, the question becomes, well, how do they go about regulating it? And what does that mean to me anyway? Well, let's talk about that. Since there's no single federal body of law around surrogacy and the states are left to make their own decisions, they usually do that via legislation. That's where their state legislature writes laws into the books about surrogacy, and case law. Case law is when a court has looked at a matter and decided how the matter should look, and then we look to those courts' rulings to see how we should behave. The main thing you want to know is when you're looking at a surrogacy arrangement and you're trying to choose a surrogate, one of the first questions you should ask yourself, your agency, the surrogate, is where does she live? And not only where does she live, where does she plan on living? Let me tell you a story. I once worked with a surrogate who lived in California. She worked in California, and for all intents and purposes, we never saw her leaving California. In fact, the contract actually stated that she agreed to remain in California throughout the term of the pregnancy. Well, something happened in the surrogate's life. She got a boyfriend, which is great, beautiful. I love love. Except when it makes a surrogate leave the state that she said she'd stay in. So my surrogate moves to Arizona. Well, you're probably thinking, okay, Corlandos, that's just across the border from California. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that Arizona doesn't recognize surrogacy arrangements or contracts. In fact, they used to criminalize surrogacy. So yeah, we were freaking out. When it came down to it and we explained the ramifications to the surrogate that, hey, there's nothing that guarantees us by law that when this baby is born, if you deliver in Arizona, that these parents will have the legal right to take the baby home. We can't even guarantee that Arizona will respect the California court judgment that we get. So without these guarantees, that leaves a lot of things in the air. So thankfully, we were able to transition her back to California and she let us know what was going on, and we didn't end up with a catastrophe. But it's so important that you know things like this that otherwise could make your surrogacy journey a disaster. So keep an eye on where your surrogate lives and where she plans on delivering. Before we move on to the next point, let me just let you soak in how crazy that last story was. And if you're wondering how does surrogacy work and what all is involved, make sure you click the link above or in the description to see my video on what surrogacy is and how it works. The last thing I want to discuss is what factors govern or determine whether your surrogacy journey is legal or illegal. Let's talk about those. One of the first factors is marital status. There's some states that allow people to undergo surrogacy if they're in a marital relationship. There are other states that say, well, you don't have to be married to do it, but you can't be in a same-sex relationship and do it. There are other states that say you can be married and do it or single and do it, but you have to be one of the contributors of gametes. Gametes, just a fancy medical term for reproductive stuff like sperm or eggs. So if you're donating your sperm or egg to the process, you can go through the surrogacy process, but if you're not, you can't. So make sure you understand what your state says about the marital or relationship status. The other factor, I already hinted at it, but it's the source of the gametes. Some states say you have to be one of the sources of the gametes. Other states, they don't care. It can be donor eggs or donor sperm or even a donor embryo. But make sure you know exactly what your state says about who can undergo or undertake the surrogacy process depending on where the source of the gametes are. And one of the last factors involved is what type of surrogacy arrangement it is. Is it a traditional surrogacy arrangement where the surrogate is actually genetically related to the child because her eggs were used to create the embryo? Or is it a gestational surrogacy arrangement where the embryos were created from eggs that were not the surrogates? Some states have things to say about that, and you want to make sure that you know what your state says before you just jump into the process. So, are you ready to start making your plans to grow your family through surrogacy? Wait. Before you do, let's talk about what all it involves. I created something for you to do just that. It's called the Surrogacy Roadmap, and it walks you through the entire surrogacy process from beginning to end. What do you do first, second, third, or 15th? Well, click the link below to get your hands on this free resource where I walk you through the entire surrogacy process, and you can go from dream to delivery.